Здравствуйте, my fair weather friends, and welcome to another episode of Kachimuchi's Game and Spooks. Today's featured creepypasta is Text-Based Hell by an anonymous creator. This creepypasta is about a person who decided to make their very own text-based video game, but instead only created their own text-based hell. This is a short but sweet creepypasta, and it touches on one of my most primal fears, technology. Without any further ado, let us begin. If there was one field I really wanted to get into when I was younger, it was working with games. No one in my family thought that was a surprise. From my school days, it's all I ever did. I would come home from school, NES, Master System, Mega Drive all through the night, every night, without fail. I love video games, and always wanted to make one of my own. Fast forward many years later, and here I am, afraid to walk out of my own house. I am writing this because I'm worried about being taken away, and if there's anything that can get me out of a lot of trouble, it's this. The best place to start, I guess, would be the day I made the decision to create my own computer game. I didn't have any experience with any aspects of game creation, though. You see, I'm the kind of guy that would have all these life ambitions, but never follow them. I work long days in a job I hate, and my dreams of creating wonders for younger, future generations was nearly dead. I wanted to do something about that. I took to the web, downloaded and bought some programs to help start out. I had a plan of making some good, well-received indie games, and hoped to get picked out by a big company. I downloaded a wide variety of programs for different types of games. RPG, arcade 2D shooters, beat-em-ups, just a range of categories I used to enjoy, and still do. I also spent hours reading tutorials. It's amazing how so many different tutorials can give you so many different explanations about similar details. Sometimes I was even wondering if the tutorial writers knew what they were talking about, but I wasn't in a position to say you were right or wrong. I started to create an RPG using some of the basic stuff I learned from what I was reading. I had an idea for a story in my head, a mystical game with dragons and magic, a wide variety of different heroes, mainly because I didn't like the idea of just one character overthrowing many types of evil. Then I thought of another type of game which I thought would be a good way to learn about how to give a character different choices and results. The text-based game, a style that was very popular in gaming's early years. The text-based game was essentially a play-your-way storybook, without the need for a book, and it was something I would use to hopefully get a small fan base going, without knowing too much about graphics and sound creation. I already had the idea for the story too. It was going to be the one I had planned for my RPG. I had this plan about telling a little white lie if my text-based game got enough downloads, that I would create the RPG based on the text-based game's popularity. But I was thinking far ahead. As if you couldn't tell by now, I'm the kind of guy who believes everything he does should have guaranteed success. It took a while, but I finished the game. I had made some changes to my RPG story a bit, just to make the story more modern sounding, and hopefully that goes well with some younger players. Halfway through development, though, my computer was being really weird. To make this game, I broke up my Windows-based laptop. The gaming-making program didn't have a Mac version. The laptop being weird reminded me why I wanted a MacBook in the first place. All was not lost, though. I was able to remove the hard drive from my laptop, and my neighbor and best friend Timothy, who was really good with computers, had the know-how to put my hard drive in a machine that he wasn't currently using. All my files were safe for my game. So, I was able to complete it. As stated earlier, though, before the completion, Timothy handed me a disc. Like I said before, he knew a lot about computers, and he had been interested in this kind of thing before. The disc apparently had some files that could help me with a lot of things when it came to making games, but he never used it. He said he never really had the chance, as it was given to him only after he made a few programs. I popped this disc in, wondering what kind of add-ons it had. To my surprise, it only contained one file, a 47 kilobyte program called completer.exe. I opened it up, and it opened up a window with all my files in it, asking me to pick one. Some files were grayed out as they weren't compatible with this program, but my game wasn't, so I used that. There was some whirring noises from the computer, and then the DOS-style window disappeared. I went back to make some edits for the game to see what Completer did, but it did nothing. I finished the game titled Warrior's Choice and burned it onto a disk. The first player had to be Timothy, for helping me save my files. When I took the disc to him, I had to ask him where he had gotten that completer disc from. He had a serious look on his face and told me that he had found the disc while looking around an abandoned house when he was away on holiday, on a house believed to be built on an ancient burial ground. My face went white. Really? I asked with horror. He laughed and gently clipped the back of my head. No, you idiot, he said, laughing. I started to laugh too. You really bought that? No, I got it from Steve, my cousin, who lives a few miles away. He never used it, saw me as a computer geek, and thought I'd get some use out of it. I was relieved. I never really believed in those kinds of things, but to receive an item from a so-called haunted building really got me. I handed him the game and left. He told me he would play it on his own time. I went back to my house, happily anticipating my first review, but while waiting for that, I created an account on a well-known fan game site and uploaded it there. 1 week later, still no downloads on the site. Nothing from Timothy. I gave him a phone call. He said he hadn't gotten around to playing it because he had been really busy. I was a little annoyed, but in my excitement for an opinion, I realized I hadn't even played it myself. I had to go to work the next day, so I thought I would trial it when I got home. That was the original plan anyway. But then I got a text from Timothy. I'll play it tonight. I went to bed that night, knowing he was on the game. I could see the light from his window, out of mine. Then, at around 2 a.m., I heard a loud noise. I didn't realize the severity of it until I looked out of my window. There was an explosion in Timothy's room. The section of the house was completely open. Broken glass and bricks on the road, and an arm. Emergency services were called in. Timothy was dead. Grieving parents were crying and cuddling outside. I was crying. I had lost my best friend through a huge blast. It made local news, but not national, and the emergency teams were trying to find the cause of the explosion. It took a long time for things to somewhat get back to normal. I had taken several days off. My boss was angered, and I came close to losing my job for not showing, and I was going through many stages of depression. 2 days ago, I checked the website again to see how my game was doing. 3 page views, no downloads still. So I played it myself. I knew what to do, where to go obviously, but then I came to a part of the game which I don't remember putting in. One of my characters had to make a choice to pull one of 2 switches. One was attached to the door to escape, the other to a large batch of explosives. I hesitated to do anything because a situation like this wasn't even in my original plan. I had tried to close the program, but it wouldn't let me. So I made a choice. The right switch. Then, in big red letters covering the whole screen, the game said, "Game over," and my computer made some very loud noises. You could hear electrical noises coming from the machine, so I acted quickly. I held my finger over the power button. The noises were getting louder, the machine was heating up. The sweat and fear was pouring out of my body. I thought I was going to pass out when, suddenly, the computer turned off. I had held the power button long enough to switch the computer off, but it wouldn't turn back on. I opened it up from the bottom and I saw light flames. The wiring was damaged, as was the hard drive. Did the completer program do something to my game? Where did it come from? I asked Timothy's family, who relocated after the house damage, and they told me how to get to Steve's house, Timothy's cousin. I introduced myself, and he seemed happy to invite me in. I never really knew Steve, nor had I heard of him before Timothy mentioned him, but once he knew, I was his best friend. He invited me in, he asked what I was doing there, and I showed him the disc. He cowered with fear. I had never seen someone visibly shake the way he was doing. He even began to tear up. Apparently, the program on the disc was created by a man who specializes in making destructive programs, but not the kind that stop a PC from working. His programs overload the system to a breaking point, causing devices to explode. The program couldn't do it alone, though. It had to be assigned to a game creator file. I got angry at Steve, saying he practically gave a death disc out, but he said he didn't know about this revelation until he gave it to Timothy. You see, Steve got the CD from this mystery guy, thinking it would help making games. Steve had no use for the CD, but he got it because he knew someone who did. His cousin. He genuinely had no idea about this guy's hacking past until after the CD was out of his possession. When I asked him how he knew about what the CD was now, he said he had heard that the man was arrested in connection with an explosion in another city. Then rumors started. He never told Timothy, though, because the rumors just seemed so surreal. Then I remembered. My game was available to the public. I asked Steve to use his computer and tried logging into my page to delete the game. Wrong password. Unbelievable. Maybe a typo? I'll try again. Wrong password. Did the game alter my account too? Wrong password. You are locked out. Please contact the administrator. I nearly broke down. I knew I had entered the right password. I named it after my dog, so I couldn't be wrong. Then Steve called me over. He told me I wasn't going to believe this. And he was right. On the main page, featured game of the week, Warrior's Choice. 3,720 downloads, and counting. So, here I am, waiting for a knock on the door as the creator of a game that could potentially kill thousands of people. I haven't heard anything yet. I'm just waiting for the first newspaper to report a story similar to Timothy's. While the destructive program had nothing to do with me, I am now linked to it. I write this down to warn everyone not to download that game. I am torn apart now because I don't feel that I could go on. I'm going to get in trouble, I know it, and there's nothing I can do about it. My life is over. The end. So that was text-based hell, and if I'm honest, I'm a little disappointed. I really like the concept of the story as a person who downloads a file onto his computer but ends up spreading it to thousands of people through seemingly innocent means. As an individual myself who has recently downloaded thousands of games, it kind of made me scared when I heard this story that one of these files could potentially destroy my entire house. But as one reads the rest of the story, they can see that it's kind of ridiculous. I am far from a technology expert, but I'm pretty sure there aren't any programs that exist that could make a computer explode. Maybe fry internally like a USB killer, but not explode like a block of C4. The origin of the Killer Disk 2 is also a bit suspect, as if a terrorist who wanted to kill people through making their computers explode, why would they only have it mounted to a game? Why not just any other computer file? After all, it is a bit doubtful that every individual who would use this has made their very own video game and would use this computer file on it. Also, I don't mean to overly criticize, but I suspect that this story was written by a person who was just learning English, as there were a lot of word mistakes and way too many commas. I was genuinely confused a few times when I was reading this. But as I said earlier, I really do enjoy the concept of this creepypasta. Everybody downloads things on their computers. They all can't be from the most genuine or official of sources. That isn't to say that a download could make your entire house explode, but it could give you a nasty virus, or perhaps even kill your computer. Like I said, I don't know much about technology. I'm deathly afraid of it. At any rate, thank you for listening to this episode of Kachimuchi's Game and Spooks. Why not do us a kindness and subscribe, or leave a comment below? This has been Kachimuchi, and that's about all I have to say about that. Farewell.